This looks like a normal, badly damaged 5-cent Canadian coin. But what if I told you some of these ugly nickels are worth millions of dollars? Today, I'm revealing the most valuable bad-condition 5-cent coins from Canada that collectors are desperately searching for. First up, the 5-cent Canada 1976 Elizabeth II coin is a fascinating piece of Canadian numismatic history that represents not only everyday currency, but also the social, economic, political, and cultural atmosphere of Canada during the mid-1970s, a time when the country was experiencing important transitions, including rising global inflation, changes in industrial demand for metals, and growing national pride due to international events such as the 1976 Montreal Olympic Games. This small coin, often overlooked in daily transactions, quietly carries within it layers of meaning, craftsmanship, and historical continuity that make it worthy of deep attention and long discussion, especially for collectors, historians, and enthusiasts of Queen Elizabeth II-era coinage. The coin was issued by the Royal Canadian Mint, one of the most respected minting institutions in the world, known for its precision, quality control, and artistic excellence. And in 1976, the Mint was producing large quantities of circulation coinage to support Canada's expanding economy and population, which meant that the 5-cent coin was struck in very high numbers to ensure sufficient supply for commerce, vending machines, public transport, and everyday purchases, making it a common sight in wallets and cash registers across the nation. The obverse side of the 1976 5-cent coin features the right-facing effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by the renowned British sculptor Arnold Machen, whose portrait of the Queen is one of the most widely used and recognizable depictions on Commonwealth coinage. And this particular portrait shows the Queen wearing a tiara rather than a full crown, giving the image a softer yet dignified appearance that emphasizes continuity, stability, and constitutional monarchy, while the fine details of her hair, facial features, and neckline were carefully engraved to balance realism with durability for mass circulation. And surrounding this portrait is the Latin inscription Elizabeth II DG Regina, which translates to Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, a traditional declaration of royal authority that links modern Canadian currency to centuries-old European coinage traditions. And below the portrait appears the date 1976, firmly anchoring the coin in its historical moment. The reverse side of the coin proudly displays the iconic beaver, an animal that has long been associated with Canada's national identity, economic origins, and natural environment. And this design was created by George Edward Kruger Gray, a highly influential artist whose work helped define the visual language of Canadian coinage in the 20th century. And the beaver is shown in a poised, alert stance, symbolizing industry, perseverance, and adaptability, qualities that early settlers admired and that became metaphors for the Canadian spirit, especially during times of economic challenge. And the inscriptions 5 cents and Canada are arranged clearly around the beaver, ensuring immediate recognition of the denomination and issuing country, even for those unfamiliar with Canadian coins. From a technical standpoint, the 1976 Canadian 5-cent coin is composed of 99.9% pure nickel, a composition that gives the coin its traditional name, nickel, as well as a distinctive metallic appearance, durability, and slight magnetic quality. And this high nickel content reflects a time when Canada was a major producer of nickel globally, particularly from regions such as Sudbury, Ontario, making the metal not only a practical choice, but also a point of national pride. Although rising nickel prices in later decades would eventually force changes in composition, making the 1976 issue part of the last era of truly pure nickel Canadian 5-cent coins. The coin has a diameter of approximately 21.2 millimeters, a weight of about 4.54 grams, and a plain edge, specifications that remained consistent for many years and allowed the coin to function smoothly in coin-operated machines, while also providing a familiar feel in the hand, something many Canadians would instantly recognize, even without looking. In terms of mintage, the 1976 5-cent coin was produced in very large quantities, numbering in the tens of millions, which explains why it is still commonly found in circulated condition today, often showing signs of wear, such as smoothing of the queen's hair, flattening of the beaver's fur details, scratches from decades of use, and darkening or toning of the nickel surface, especially in coins that have passed through countless transactions over nearly half a century. Because of this high mintage, the coin is generally not considered rare, and in bad or heavily worn condition, it usually holds little value beyond its face value. But its worth increases modestly in lightly circulated condition, and more significantly in uncirculated or mint-state examples, particularly those that retain original luster, sharp strikes, and minimal contact marks. And such higher-grade coins are often sought after by collectors building complete date sets of Canadian nickels or collections focused on Queen Elizabeth II's reign. Beyond monetary value, the 1976 5-cent coin has strong educational and historical importance, as it serves as a tangible link to Canada's past, reflecting the balance between British royal heritage, represented by the Queen's portrait, and distinctly Canadian symbolism, embodied by the beaver. And this dual identity is central to understanding Canada's cultural development as a constitutional monarchy with a unique national character. For many people, especially those who grew up in the 1970s and 1980s, this coin can also evoke nostalgia, memories of childhood allowances, corner stores, public payphones, and a time when small change had greater purchasing power, adding an emotional layer to its significance. Collectors today may include the 1976 5-cent coin in thematic collections related to the Montreal Olympics era, Commonwealth coinage, pure nickel issues, or animal-themed coins. And even those with no numismatic background may find interest in how such a small, everyday object can carry stories of mining, art, monarchy, economics, and national identity all at once. Ultimately, the 5-cent Canada 1976 Elizabeth II coin stands as a durable, unassuming historical artifact, a piece of metal that has survived decades of circulation and change, quietly preserving a snapshot of Canada in 1976. And while it may not be rare or highly valuable, its richness lies in its context, symbolism, and enduring presence, making it a meaningful subject for long reflection, deep study, and appreciation by anyone curious about the hidden history contained within ordinary coins. Next up, the 5-cent Canada 1998 Elizabeth II coin is a deeply interesting and historically meaningful piece of modern Canadian coinage that reflects a turning point in Canada's monetary system, minting technology, and economic thinking at the end of the 20th century. And although it is often dismissed as a common circulation coin, a closer and more thoughtful examination reveals that it carries layers of history, symbolism, industrial change, and cultural identity that make it worthy of long and serious discussion, especially for collectors, students of numismatics, and anyone curious about how everyday objects silently record national stories. Issued by the Royal Canadian Mint, the 1998 5-cent coin was struck during a period when Canada was actively transitioning away from traditional metal compositions due to rising production costs, fluctuating global metal prices, and the need for more efficient, durable, and economical coinage. And this year is particularly important because it marks the final regular issue year of pure nickel circulation 5-cent coins, making the 1998 issue a symbolic end of an era in Canadian numismatic history. The obverse of the coin features the familiar right-facing portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Dora de Pettery Hunt, which had been introduced in 1990 and replaced the earlier Arnold Mackin effigy. And this portrait presents the Queen in a more mature and contemporary style, wearing a regal diadem rather than a crown, with refined facial details that reflect dignity, experience, and continuity, symbolizing stability during a time of rapid global change. And surrounding the portrait is the inscription Elizabeth II, D.G. Regina, reaffirming Canada's constitutional monarchy and its historical ties to the British Crown, while the date 1998 appears clearly below, anchoring the coin firmly in the late 1990s, a decade characterized by technological growth, globalization, and economic restructuring. The reverse side proudly displays the iconic beaver, a design originally created by G.E. Kruger Gray in 1937, which by 1998 had become one of the most enduring and recognizable animal symbols on any national coinage in the world, representing hard work, determination, adaptability, and the foundational role of the fur trade in Canada's early economic development. And the beaver's presence on the 1998 5-cent coin reinforces a sense of national continuity, even as materials and manufacturing methods were changing, while the inscriptions 5 cents and Canada remain bold and clear, ensuring instant identification of denomination and country. From a technical and metallurgical perspective, the 1998 Canadian 5-cent coin is composed of 99.9% pure nickel, giving it a solid feel, a dull silver-gray color, and magnetic properties. And this pure nickel composition connects the coin directly to Canada's status as one of the world's leading nickel producers, particularly from mining regions such as Sudbury, Ontario, making the coin not only a monetary instrument, but also a subtle representation of Canadian natural resources and industrial strength. And because later 5-cent coins were produced using plated steel rather than solid nickel, the 1998 issue holds special interest as the last widely circulated solid nickel Canadian 5-cent coin. The coin measures approximately 21.2 millimeters in diameter, weighs about 4.54 grams, and has a plain edge. Specifications that had remained largely unchanged for decades, ensuring compatibility with vending machines and coin handling systems across the country. And these familiar dimensions made the coin instantly recognizable to Canadians who had used similar nickels throughout their lives. In terms of mintage, the Royal Canadian Mint produced tens of millions of 1998 5-cent coins to meet everyday circulation demand, meaning that the coin is still relatively common today, especially in worn or circulated condition, and many examples show heavy use, including flattened design details on the Queen's hair and the beaver's fur. Surface scratches, rim dings, discoloration, and dark toning caused by years of handling, storage, and environmental exposure. Because of this high mintage, the 1998 5-cent coin is generally not rare, and in bad or heavily worn condition, it typically carries little monetary value beyond its face value. But its importance lies more in its historical context than its price. Although uncirculated or mint-state examples, especially those with strong luster, clean surfaces, and sharp strikes, can command modest premiums among collectors, particularly those assembling complete date sets, Elizabeth II portrait collections, or end-of-era nickel compositions. Beyond collector value, the 1998 5-cent coin holds strong educational and cultural significance, as it represents the closing chapter of Canada's long tradition of solid nickel coinage, bridging the past and future of Canadian money. And for many people, it evokes memories of the late 1990s, a time of changing technology, early internet adoption, economic optimism, and shifting consumer habits, when small change still played a noticeable role in daily life. The coin also illustrates how nations adapt their currency systems to practical realities, showing that even deeply traditional designs like the beaver can coexist with innovation in materials and manufacturing. Today, collectors may seek out the 1998 Canadian 5-cent coin not because it is rare or extremely valuable, but because it marks a historical milestone, symbolizing the end of pure nickel circulation coins in Canada. And even in poor condition, it serves as a tangible reminder of how currency evolves alongside society, industry, and national priorities, making the 5-cent Canada 1998 Elizabeth II coin a quiet yet powerful artifact of Canadian history that continues to educate, inspire curiosity, and connect the present with the recent past through a simple piece of metal that once passed unnoticed through countless hands. Next up, the 5-cent Canada 1974 Elizabeth II coin is a classic example of mid-20th century Canadian circulation coinage, and serves as a small yet powerful historical document that reflects Canada's political structure, economic environment, artistic traditions, and industrial strengths during the early 1970s, a period marked by global uncertainty, rising inflation, changes in commodity markets, and a growing sense of Canadian identity on the world stage. And although this coin was produced for everyday use and handled millions of times by ordinary people, its design, composition, and continued survival make it a deeply interesting subject for long study and appreciation. Issued by the Royal Canadian Mint, the 1974 5-cent coin was part of Canada's regular circulating coinage and was struck in very large quantities to meet the demands of commerce at a time when cash transactions were still dominant in daily life, long before digital payments became common, meaning this coin would have passed through grocery stores, public transport systems, vending machines, payphones, and countless personal exchanges across the country. The obverse side of the coin features the right-facing portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin, one of the most respected sculptors of his time, whose effigy of the Queen was widely used throughout the Commonwealth from 1965 until 1989. And this portrait shows the Queen wearing a tiara, symbolizing elegance, authority, and continuity rather than overt imperial power, reflecting the modern role of the monarchy in a constitutional democracy like Canada. And surrounding the portrait is the Latin inscription Elizabeth II DG Regina, translating to Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, a traditional phrase that connects modern Canadian currency to centuries of European coinage history, while the date 1974 appears clearly below the portrait, anchoring the coin firmly within a decade defined by economic challenges such as the oil crisis and changing global trade dynamics. The reverse side of the 1974 Canadian 5-cent coin displays the iconic beaver, a national symbol that represents hard work, resilience, resourcefulness, and the foundational role of the fur trade in Canada's early economic development. And this design was created by G.E. Kruger Gray, whose work helped establish a uniquely Canadian visual identity in coinage. And the beaver is shown in a naturalistic yet strong pose, emphasizing industriousness and balance with nature, while the inscriptions 5 cents and Canada are clearly placed to identify the coin's value and country of origin, making the reverse instantly recognizable even to those with little interest in coins. From a technical and metallurgical perspective, the 1974 5-cent coin is composed of 99.9% pure nickel, which gives the coin its traditional name nickel, along with a solid feel, durability, and slight magnetic properties. And this choice of metal reflects Canada's position as one of the world's leading producers of nickel, particularly from mining regions such as Sudbury, Ontario, making the coin not only a medium of exchange, but also a subtle representation of national industrial strength and natural resources. The coin has a diameter of approximately 21.2 millimeters, a weight of about 4.54 grams, and a plain edge, specifications that were consistent for decades and allowed the coin to function reliably in mechanical coin-operated systems, while also providing a familiar tactile experience that many Canadians could identify without even looking. The mintage of the 1974 Canadian 5-cent coin was extremely high, with tens of millions produced, which means the coin is still relatively common today, especially in circulated condition. And many surviving examples show clear signs of wear, such as smoothing of the Queen's hair, loss of fine facial details, flattening of the beaver's fur and tail, scratches from prolonged circulation, rim dents, and dark toning caused by oxidation and handling over nearly half a century. Because of this high mintage, the 1974 5-cent coin is generally not considered rare, and in bad or heavily worn condition, it typically holds little value beyond its face value. But coins in better circulated condition or uncirculated mint state can attract modest premiums from collectors, especially those with strong luster, clean surfaces, and sharp strikes. And such examples are often preserved in coin albums, rolls, or protective holders. However, the true value of the 1974 Canadian 5-cent coin lies not in its market price, but in its historical, cultural, and educational significance, as it represents a time when Canada was balancing tradition with modernization, maintaining royal symbolism while asserting a distinct national identity through imagery like the beaver. For many people, this coin also carries a sense of nostalgia, evoking memories of childhood allowances, small purchases, and a time when 5 cents had more purchasing power than it does today, adding emotional depth to its significance. Collectors may include the 1974 5-cent coin in complete date sets of Canadian nickels, Elizabeth II portrait collections, animal-themed coin collections, or studies of pure nickel coinage before later changes in composition. And even for non-collectors, the coin serves as a reminder that everyday objects can quietly preserve history. Ultimately, the 5-cent Canada 1974 Elizabeth II coin stands as a durable witness to Canada's past. A simple yet meaningful piece of metal that reflects monarchy, national symbolism, industrial strength, and everyday life in the 1970s. And while it may not be rare or extremely valuable, its richness lies in the stories it carries, the hands it has passed through, and the era it represents, making it a worthy subject for long reflection and deep appreciation.